spotlight on positive goings on the real people that have chosen a real path. The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared.
Just how have you been able to build and maintain relationships, with your clients and referral partners?
Well, I think one of the things that I always consider with my customers is what is it that they need from me? Where are their struggles? Where are their pain points? How is it that I can make their job either easier or more profitable? So it's really knowing what their business needs are. And if I have the programs and the process in order to fill the needs that they have. So for instance, my company doesn't do certain particular loans like, DSCR loans. So if that was your book of business, we're probably not going to be a great fit because you don't have the need for me and I can't fulfill what your needs are. So I think really figuring out what your customer needs and how they like to operate. So, if we kind of go back, we've worked together for the past, I think, 10 plus years. And we kind of, in talking over the years, figured out how do we work best together? Like, you want me to reach out to you at least once a month. Like, we don't have to talk daily. We don't have to talk weekly, but we need to at least communicate with each other once a month. And just figuring out what the customer wants that suits their needs. I mean, even over time, the things have changed. Like, people would call you and leave you a voice message. Well, now people don't leave you voice messages. They call, they hang up, and then I need to know that that particular person just expects that I'm going to call them back. So kind of just figuring out what makes your customers tick and what their business needs are and how I'm able to make their life easier, make their job easier, and make it more profitable for them. I think that's how I've continued to develop and maintain the relationships that I've had over the last 20 years.
One thing I would always credit you with is you've always kind of been a trendsetter in the regard of, you've been willing to have brokers nationally. It hasn't been just, hey, I'm in Arizona and I'm just going to service Arizona clients. You've had Chicago, New York and some of the various states. And you've been willing to travel.
Right.
And that's been a difference. And that's something that I think people can appreciate within the mortgage industry that, wow, she's come all this way over here. She flew a plane and she came to see me. So, I think that's always been something that I've always kind of seen you do. And I see others trying to copy that as well.
Right.
Was that instinctive? Was that just something natural for you to like, hey, you thought bigger than what maybe the market dictated?
Well, I think when I started in the sales position in the wholesale channel, I was an inside salesperson. So I did have accounts throughout the country, and the position really wasn't for me to travel to different accounts. I was sitting at a desk taking phone calls and helping customers that way. But really, you do need to meet people face to face. Some people will probably never want to meet me. That's just how, again, knowing your customer and knowing what they want. But I did feel that there were certain accounts that wanted that face to face. So I did start traveling to different customers to visit them. And I still, as you know, I'm here in Arizona, but I do have accounts on the East Coast, all, from New York all the way through to California. So if it warrants a trip, if they want to visit, then I'm certainly happy to do that. I think it does bring it to that next level. But, post pandemic, a lot of people aren't even going into an office anymore. So that's even, sort of changed the nature of our industry. So some people, I could meet them for coffee if they wanted to, because they don't even have an office where their staff goes every day.
Exactly. And obviously piggybacking that with Epic Mortgage. I mean, really with the pandemic, that opened up the door for us to become a regional mortgage broker, being able to service, even Texas and Georgia and Florida. We've expanded our, just our process and understanding that, in the mortgage space, mortgage is money and money travels.
Right.
And so, and to service, our clients, which are realtors, we wanted to be able to help them and say, hey, we can help you. Whether you're in Virginia or if you're in Texas, it's still the same thing. And definitely you have products to service all these people.
Right. For sure.
So then as far as the sales quota and, just having, obviously being with a company, I imagine there's quotas, there's sales agendas, and you have your own personal goals. How do you go about constructing those? How do you go about executing the plan to, exceed those goals?
I first look at, what does my company have to offer? So in deciding where I wanted to work or who I wanted to work with, I had to look at, programs that sort of met my needs, which really had to meet my customers' needs. So where does my company excel? What are we doing well? So I need to know that piece of it and know how that fits in with my customers' plan. So for instance, if our first-time homebuyer government program is, really well priced, I really need to be working with customers who do that kind of business. So knowing what my customers do and knowing what my own company does helps me to set my goals. But more importantly, I share my goals with my team. So because I can't do it all by myself. So at the beginning of every month, I look at my production numbers from the month before and share it with my team. But then I look at the month coming up, look at what my goals are going to be, and then share that with my team. So everybody's invested in this goal that we're trying to reach. So, my company has me, they want me to reach so much. I come up with those goals and how to meet them. But I think the important thing is making everybody feel like they're a part of achieving that success.
Oh, that's great. And it sounded like you're doing it on a month-to-month basis.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
When we evaluate it, I evaluate my pipeline every day. So some of, what you said in my bio is the discipline part. My days, my work days are very routine in terms of, when I wake up in the morning and I exercise, and then I look at my pipeline and I go through my pipeline and see, what loans have to be done, how much have we funded, how many loans have come in. So I follow that discipline every single day. I don't share everything with my team every day because it would probably be overwhelming, but I'm sort of the person behind the curtain, making sure that it's all kind of moving through as it should. So I certainly do update them so that, a few times a month, letting them know where we are in terms of achieving our goals. And when we have successes, like we have a great lock day, I'll send that out to my team, like awesome job team. Look at how many locks we pulled in. Any great emails from customers I share with my team because, like any job, some days can be challenging and you really want to bring people up and make them feel good about what we're doing, which is putting people in a home.
I so much love talking to you because I do the same thing. And I can't tell everyone that I do that because I was looking at my pipeline even on a Sunday and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, and I want to send this email out, but I didn't want to scare my team that knows like, man, this guy's got no life.
I know, we don't.
Crazy.
We do. It just really depends on how, as you know, I'm an early riser. So
Sure.
I'm the person at 4 a.m. that's looking at my pipeline and sending it out to the team. But, by 8 p.m., you're not going to hear from me.
Right.
So
Right.
because I think we're passionate, we can sometimes, at least because I'm sort of one step removed from the customer, you're my customer, the real end customer is the home buyer. And I think it's easier for us to forget that there's a family that's trying to buy a home. So I want to make sure that we know that and that we're as vested in getting that, meeting that closing date and making it as easy as possible for the customer to get in. So that falls upon me to make sure that I'm managing, the day-to-day movement of the files through the system.
Yeah, I've always said in the wholesale space, from a lender perspective, your job is to make me look good.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm trying to impress the consumer. I'm trying to impress the realtor. If you can make me look good, and got my back, that's going to make me feel confident to want to continue to work with you, confident to want to, begin to, tell everyone about these amazing products. And so, it's all about us working together as a team.
For
So I
sure.
can respect that. Now, obviously, moving forward in the mortgage industry, we have a lot of stuff going on all the time. The market is continually changing in real estate that affects us. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing moving forward that we may be facing?
I think one of the, it's having, like, you've been in this industry for, been in this for over 20 years. Nobody goes to school to get into mortgages. I mean, I started my career as a high school teacher, and even as an economics teacher, you're not teaching people about mortgages. You're not going to college or, taking additional classes to get into the business. And I know we really felt it, at least on like the appraisal front of getting some newer people into the industry. So I think that's one challenge that I don't think we've done, enough to attract people into our business. There's there's not a big mentor program that any company offers to bring people on to teach them. And it really is an industry where, I guess if you took some classes, you'll get exposure to maybe the regulations and some of the programs, but so much of this is on the job training. And I think that's one challenge that we're going to face is, I don't know what the average age is of an account executive or a loan officer. I think, the average age of appraisers is getting a little bit old, towards the older end of the spectrum. So I think that's probably, one of our challenges. And I think, staying relevant in terms of, there's so many, I don't want to call them big box lenders, but the more boutique lenders, we have to be able to stand out in some way from our bigger competitors that are out there that are, I want to say more like an assembly line, but it's a different structure that they use to move through loans. So I think for the smaller companies, it's a bit more challenging to scale. The increases in business and the decreases in business. I think it's a lot harder for us to sort of keep up when the market does turn, and then to back off when the market goes in the other direction.
Sure. And do you see cost as an issue too? just the cost of doing business has increased, and obviously the one that's impacted the most is the consumer, right?
For sure. Well, even though the cost of appraisal or credit reports has gone up significantly, we have to always be careful, every time that you hire somebody that, that person comes with, salary and benefits, and you need to be sure that you have, enough business to keep those people hired. You certainly don't want to hire too many and then have to do a layoff, but you always need enough available there. So yeah, the cost of margins right now are so thin. I know the competition is stiff out there. When it's stiff for you, then it's stiff for us. So everybody trying to get as lean and competitive as they possibly can with pricing, and with fees is certainly important.
Yeah, that's always been tough for me. I've never been a fan of, but I get it, right? In our business, when the water turns on and it's flush and we're super busy, we want to hire, and then all of a sudden when it gets a little tight, we fire, and that kind of accordion level business that we're in of hey, here today but gone tomorrow. I've always not liked that. I always wanted to stay lean and efficient and just say, hey, this is our crew, because I just don't like letting people go. And I think it kills morale, even for a period of time.
And it's an instability, right? People get in the industry and it's, I know loan officers that I've worked with for years that over the last 2 years have had to find something else to do because there's just, the business just wasn't there. And, underwriters that have moved into other positions where, 2020 and 2021, we couldn't hire people. There weren't enough people to fulfill the business. So it's sort of feast or famine. We're either so incredibly busy or it's so incredibly slow and challenging. And that's really hard to staff to. There's offshoring that you can do, but that's so difficult because it's hard to even find people that understand the mortgage business to the extent that we have to in order to do it. But to offshore that, it's not, this isn't an assembly line kind of job. So it's a little bit more challenging to use that as a way to, turn the faucet on and turn the faucet, back off. So it's definitely a challenge.
And then how have you handled the remote as far as, that really hasn't been a big ordeal. But, just from, there's a responsibility level that you have to have a trust within your team that, obviously they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Everyone's remote. No one's really going into an office per se.
Right.
Epic Mortgage, all of us are remote. I'm the only one in the office, each and every day. So it's, I just, wanted you to talk about that a little bit with your team.
Well, I trust my team, implicitly. The people that I work with are people that I've worked with for a number of years. So I can be hard to please because I know that, you are hard. It's not that you're hard to please, but I want to please you and you have a customer to please and a realtor to please. And so I really pick my team very carefully. And there's, people are looking for jobs now. And if people want a recommendation from me, I can't refer anybody that I have never worked with before. Sure. Like I've been, burned in the past by, this is a great, account manager. But if I haven't worked with them, I can't recommend them. I really look at people that have that same kind of work ethic and drive that I do, which sometimes is maybe harder to find, but it's all about customer service. I mean, when you're in sales, you're really, it's customer service. That's what it boils down to. You can choose to go to probably 50 other lenders. I have to do something that's going to set me apart from the rest of them. So anyone that's working on my team has to be able to respond, quickly and correctly and pleasantly. So, it's not this, there's no secret sauce. Like, I have to answer questions. I have to be correct and I have to be friendly. That's kind of what it takes. It's pretty simple, but yet sometimes it's hard for people to do those three things.
No doubt, no doubt. And as we finish this off, what advice would you give to a beginner, as far as a new LO or a new AE? How do they get really started in this business? What would you recommend?
I would say if they can find someone to mentor them. That's how I actually started in the business. As you know, you mentioned I was a high school teacher, and when I started in 2001, you didn't need a license. There weren't any, college courses in Mortgage 101. I started actually working with my brother, and he taught me the business. And this, of course, is when everybody was going in the office, and I literally sat in his office every day and listened and asked questions and listened and asked questions. And, it takes so much time to accumulate all of this knowledge and understanding. So I think, having a mentor, I know you mentor the loan officers that, that work with you. That's key, because there's just not a lot of true classes or just any way for them to learn the industry. And I think the other thing is just, you always have to be open to change, and change is hard. I get it. I'm so impressed with some of the changes that you've made in your business since you started. I mean, again, we've known each other for 10 years, and you're doing podcasts now, you're an author now. So you've been willing to try different things. I mean, it's not just going in an office now and let me hand you a flyer. There's so many different ways. And some of those things might not be comfortable, like getting in front of the camera and doing, what we're doing now. It may not be comfortable for people, but in the end, try it. I mean, why not? What is it going to hurt? If you don't succeed, then try something else. So, and talk to people. I mean, I have a list of sales tips that I always share with my team, like, pick up your phone or put people in your phone. And when they answer, say, "Hi, Dante, how are you today?" People are so surprised when I just answer my phone and use their name. Sometimes like I said, it's not hard. There's some really simple techniques that you can employ. So I think getting a good mentor and really being flexible to what's available, in the marketplace for you to get in front of customers.
As far as non-QM and portfolio non-agency programs, what is that?
So non-QM is basically what does not fit in an FHA or a conventional bucket. So it is really targeted towards borrowers that have specific income needs. Example being your self-employed borrowers that might not be able to fit that conventional requirements for Fannie or Freddie. Non-QM offers these borrowers an opportunity for homeownership through alternate documentation. Portfolio products, basically, they're products that our company would have that specifically we keep that paper that we are the portfolio lender of that product. Again, they're not agency products. So the agencies or FHA would not be involved in those. Those are similar to like your jumbo products, those sorts of things where we have an investor that follows up with those products.
Got it. No, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure the audience knows, because there's so much different verbiage in the mortgage space, and it gets confusing of like, oh, am I not QM? Am I this? And obviously you need an expertise. You need a professional that you trust. And we appreciate you having you. Now, what role would you consider yourself as an account executive? What kind of role in the transaction do you play?
So I look at myself as a facilitator and an educator. It's my job to provide the opportunity for loan officers and processors to learn my products, learn my system, learn my process. That all helps make for a smoother and more enjoyable loan process. I love working with loan officers and processors to teach them something new. So when somebody comes to me that's never done a non-QM product before, I get excited about that because I get to help take away the misconceptions that there are of non-QM products. Non-QM products are not subprime products. And a lot of people want to put that bucket into it. They're just an alternative to conventional. So I really thrive on being able to help somebody learn something new, help them gain confidence so that they can increase their book of business. It could be something that they've been nervous about doing before. And I want to provide them every advantage to win more market share in the areas that they work in, and providing them that support through product and system training. And sometimes, Dante, we provide emotional support, right? Sometimes I'm Dear Abby, but that's okay. I'm here to be whatever I can to help you increase your business. Really, whatever the loan officer and the processors need me to be, I acclimate to how you do business. Everybody does business a little bit differently. I'm one person. You work with a ton of lenders. I only have to represent myself and my company. So I only have to know one thing. So that helps me help you, because that way I can take some of the mystery and some of the, nervousness that you guys might have about learning how to work with a new lender. I try to be that person to help you gain that comfort so that you want to use me going forward.
No, that's a great answer. Obviously in the bio, we talked about mortgage brokers and mortgage bankers that you work with. Mm-hmm. But let me just, because I'm biased, why do you have such a passion for working with mortgage brokers?
Well, I think that the mortgage broker is vital and necessary to the communities that they serve. You guys are in there. Look how embedded you are in the community that you serve. And you make yourself a part of the fabric of that area. And, that's the key word, is serving. Like I'm serving you to help you be able to go out and serve your borrowers. And, that's when we're serving others, we're creating something that is good within a community. I get to be a small part of helping somebody achieve their dream of owning a home. I mean, and you and I have talked about this over the years. I still get weepy sometimes when I hear some of the tales from the closing table about how emotional somebody got, or how thrilled they were to be able to own a home. So for me to be able to help the mortgage brokers in the areas that they work, provide that support and provide that pathway for a homeowner it's very fulfilling to me. And it means that we're connecting to something more than just a place where we sleep and where we eat, right? Owning a home can change somebody's legacy. It can change a family's legacy from what it was to what it's going to be. This is a place where your kids learn to ride your first bike. I'm sure you've been experiencing things like that recently, Yes. It's where we have block parties. It's where we help our neighbors. We get to know people, where we celebrate holidays and family. We're creating something. And if we're lucky, it will last us a lifetime. And then we have a place that we can call home.
That's awesome. No, I still believe in the American dream, and obviously home ownership is a part of it.
For sure.
So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about the mortgage, kind of process, and how do you address them, just in your, working with your company?
Right. And that's a great question. This is just my personal opinion. You and I have talked about this before in the past. People get too focused on rate and not payment. That's one thing that consistently still rears its head, is, well, where are rates? Well, the rate environment has drastically changed. So I think that one of the great things that you guys, especially great loan officers like you, do is, what's that phrase? You date the rate and you marry the payment. And that
you marry the house and you date the rate.
Okay. Well, we're going to marry the payment. We're marrying the payment in my example. Okay.
Deal.
So, because the payment is really from the lending standpoint, that's what we're most concerned about, right? We want to make sure that you can afford your house. We want to set you up for success. So we want to make sure you can afford to write the check every month for your mortgage. It's another reason to have loan officers like you, because you can show them the numbers that are going to reflect the different rates and payments so that they have the options and they know, what they feel they can bear. And it's also, what's really interesting is another thing that we kind of have with the underwriting situation is a lot of people feel like, a lot of brokers feel like the underwriter is going to be against me. That is a misconception. The underwriter is there to help make sure that borrower is set up to succeed. They're there to make sure that credit burden of adding that payment to that house is not going to be something that's going to overwhelm them. It's not something that's going to set them up to fail. We want all of these things to work together. So the misconceptions is that, first of all, you have to have, my neighbor's got the 5% rate from 2000 whatever, and now I want that rate, right? You have to look at times evolve, and you have to make sure that what you are paying, you can afford.
I like to piggyback that because you're so right on. It's really a team. I take it back to sports. It's really a team. Me working with you, working with your underwriters, working with your account managers. We are trying to really work together in unison so we can present a great presentation to the buyer, a smooth process, which you do. And that allows us to close. And it's all, it all works together. But, what we don't want to do is set people up, like you said, for failure. We don't want to get people that are not ready yet, a home, because it's just not a good business across the board.
That's right. And that's where people like you being the first stop really for the borrower, that's where that comes into play, because then you and I can get together and talk through and make sure, before you even submit a loan, hey, what are we working with here? And we can really, look to see that this is the right time. That, it's like you hear the phrase, it's not always a no, but maybe it's a no for right now. And let's have a little bit more time for that borrower to be in a better position so that they're happier and not stressed. Buying a home is stressful. That process is stressful. When you get in your home, don't bring that stress from the transaction that you felt into the new home. You should be happy and relieved and start creating your memories.
That's awesome. Now, Paige, obviously we, in this market in particular, we have a lot of first-time home buyers. We also have a lot of first-time investors. What are some, what are some things that you would recommend or suggest, dealing with some of the complexities of just the mortgage market right now that you would recommend that they establish and have ready?
That I'm so thankful that you had this question, because I appreciate having this opportunity in this forum to kind of talk about this a little bit. First and foremost, for first-time home buyers, if you're a first-time home buyer and you're listening to this, please listen. I've been in the lending business for over 20 years. Please listen. I've seen a few transactions in my day, okay? I'm not telling you how old I am, but I've seen a few transactions in my day, all right? I would say when you are talking about buying a house, before you ever go to find a realtor, before you even look at a house, find a loan officer like Dante. Find somebody that you can talk through thoroughly about your finances, about your job history, about all of the things that can impact a good decision from an underwriter for your home buying experience. That should always be the starting point. It should never be, let's go look at houses this weekend. Because inevitably, people fall in love with the house that may be outside of what they're comfortably going to qualify for. So if you start with a great loan officer like Dante and you're honest with them, be honest about what your finances are, what your expenses are outside of your rent payment. That is one of the big things that we do see, or that I personally see when I'm talking to loan officers, is just because you might qualify on paper from a guideline standpoint on DTI does not mean that you're going to comfortably have the income left over for things that you have to pay for. We all are going to have car repairs. We're all going to have to pay different insurances. Some people pay daycare. I mean, there's groceries. I mean, all of these things are bills that you have that are not considered in the transaction by the underwriter, but they're expenses that we have. And so you really, as a first-time home buyer, you need to align yourself with somebody like Dante that can walk you through so that you're able to evaluate your whole picture, not just what the lender is going to look at, because that is going to give you the most comfort by the time that you get to the point of looking for your house.
Oh, that was great. Thank you. I didn't know that was coming. So, and I didn't pay you to do that. So thank you very much. That was very kind words.
I've known you for so many years, and I know that, the loan officers that really are invested in helping their borrowers, they have that entire conversation with them. And because it is so important. Daycare, oh my goodness, that's an expense. You know this, we all of us that have children that we work and we've had to put them in daycare. We know that's a big expense. Yes, people that enjoy giving charitable contributions. All of these, any money out the door means you really need to be able to account for it yourself personally. And a good loan officer can help you maneuver through that.
Yeah, you're talking about the pre-approval process.
Yes,
it's so important. It should be the first step that you do.
Absolutely.
Once you have your numbers, then you can go out, get with a realtor, go start shopping for homes, and then they'll just put you in a better situation. So you, like you said, are not falling in love with the house that you really can't afford. So many times I have been in those same situations where, we got this contract accepted. Oh, you did? Well, what's going on? And they don't even qualify for it. Or now there's, it's just a stressful process because now we're having to do so much cleanup work, paying this off, paying that off, trying to maneuver just to make this, because we weren't really ready, but we jumped anyway.
Right.
And that's a smooth thing. But tell me about investors. What would you say about investors as well?
Yeah. So investors, investing in properties has been a big thing, right, for the last years, especially with different TV shows and things that come on that get people's juices flowing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And every one of us, if we're honest, that loves those shows, we think to ourselves at one point or another, whether it's a fleeting thought or a staying thought, I could do that.
Right.
We just do. So if you're a first-time investor, what I say to you is do your research. Get to know and understand the area that you're interested in investing in, and check out how the rental markets have been doing within the last 6 to 12 months, because that is an ebb and flow market, right? Rents don't stay the same. They go up, they go down, they stay the same for a period of time, but just make sure that you know the market, that you know the rental market, that you have researched and understand how rents have been doing in the last years. Quarters, years, whatever, however you feel like that, because every area across the country is different. And there are areas in the country right now, just by my reading, and again, this is just my opinion, that we're beginning to see some softening in the rental market, just like you're seeing some softening in the housing market as far as, prices go, but that depends totally on where you are. And, some markets, there's still multiple offers on homes and buyers are losing out. So that's one of the things is rental markets change, and you don't want to have an expectation of what you feel like you're going to get based off of what rental income has been. You want to see where it is and where its history has been, so you have a good feeling on whether or not this is going to be a good investment opportunity for you. I also say, please research the expenses that go along with maintaining a rental property. Are you going to maintain it yourself? Are you going to have a property manager? Who do you have lined up to make repairs when something comes up? You really should be investigating, how much does a plumber cost to change a water heater? How much will it cost if the roof needs to be replaced? Those are all things that you really need to have a good handle on in order to be a successful first-time investor. a lot of people just get the idea in their head based on what they see other people doing and the success that other people have had. But you have to bear in mind, a lot of these people, they've been doing this for many years and they own many properties. So just be thoughtful, be methodical in your research. Don't make an emotional decision. And that way you can actually feel good about investing in real estate. Real estate, again, this is my opinion, can be a great investment. It can be a wonderful opportunity for people to increase their wealth, their net worth. And it can be a great opportunity for you to be able to provide affordable housing for people in communities. But it's not for everybody. And so that research part is critical for you to make sure that you are not setting yourself up to not be able to follow through with your commitment on a mortgage when you take it out on that investment property.
But yeah, we talk about, just an epic mortgage, just financial freedom. And I always believe that real estate should be a part of your portfolio somehow, some way. Yeah. Would you kind of agree with that sentiment?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't know what the actual statistic is, but lots of millionaires have been made through real estate alone. So definitely real estate has to be a part of your portfolio for sure.
So walk me right now through like the investment world right now. So, I mean, obviously that's what you, focus on. What are some of the things that we should know that's going on in the investment world?
So definitely investing is always going to be a good opportunity. A lot of people, subscribe to the myth that now is not the great time, not the best time to be in real estate investing because of higher interest rates or higher sales prices and things of that nature. But there's always going to be an opportunity to invest from things such as divorce sales, probate sales, tax sales. Everybody's always going to have some sort of financial hardship, and that will create the opportunity for not only you to invest in property yourself, but also to maybe help someone out of their situation.
Never even thought about that concept of being able to help someone. It's not always just being a vulture taking advantage of somebody. You're actually helping people out in different situations.
Yes. Right now, in fact, I'm actually helping some families kind of resolve some family issues. Had a death in the family. A home was owned. Everybody's kind of, fighting about who gets to do what and who gets to get what. And so by being able to come in and, provide financing that will actually, allow someone to, cash in on the equity of the property and divide it up equally among the family, we're actually kind of, helping to solve a dilemma that they're going through.
Definitely. A professional problem solver.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as far as other deals, when we go into real estate investing, I believe, short-term rentals are a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Long-term rentals and fix and flips. Can you talk about maybe just some of the different platforms and where you see the advantages are?
Sure. Absolutely. So short-term rental, I would say just thinking back to COVID, right? Honestly, flights were cheap. I'll admit flights were cheap. And I probably went on maybe 10 different vacations and stayed in Airbnbs the whole time. Right. Awesome. Right now, people are using short-term rental to create an income stream for themselves, where they are renting properties probably to the tune of 3, 4, or 5 times that they're collecting rents on those properties to the tune of 3, 4, and 5 times that they would be able to collect on a normal situation from like a normal long-term tenant. So short-term rentals are definitely the way to go. It's very popular. A lot of people want to have those experiences. They don't want to necessarily stay in a hotel. They want to be able to bring their whole family and, live in a property that for short term that they wouldn't normally be able to occupy, and they're doing it in vacation areas. They're doing it in all of the big cities. They're even doing it in a lot of the suburbs, believe it or not. And for the investor, that is definitely creating a lot of income.
No, definitely. From a short-term rental aspect, I thought about if you charge like $200 per day, and at least we're able to rent it for at least 20 days, that's $4,000.
Yeah.
Most even your average mortgage right now, let's say is 18, somewhere between 15 to 2,000 even. I mean, there's a lot of profit in that. So I could see the huge benefit if people can have the right location. When you say location is going to be the key.
Yes, absolutely. The location is definitely going to be the key. What draws a lot of people back from it is a lot of people don't want to have the management aspect. They don't want to, manage the properties themselves. But the good thing is there are actually, companies that'll take care of the management piece for you. So you don't have to ever, clean up after anyone. You can, hire someone to get all of that done for you. So it's definitely, no excuse to really, get into it and generate some of that income for yourself and your family.
Nice. Now, talk about long-term investments. What would you say in regards to long-term? I know, obviously, the big BRRRR. I don't know who came up with that concept. It's a great one.
Millennials, BRRRR being buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. That is the strategy that people are using to acquire and build wealth through having investment property portfolios. Definitely long-term rentals are still a solid way to generate income for your family. Basically what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to, renovate a property, get a tenant in there for the long term, something that they're going to consider their home. Ideally, you want to have a tenant that wants to be there long term, that's going to treat it as their home and take care of it. But what you're going to do is you're going to take any profits that you're making and pay down your mortgage so that over, the next 15, 20, 30 years, you pay that property, that asset down free and clear. And now it's just an income generator. And a lot of times it's a retirement account for people.
And the refinance, a part of the BRRRR is a tax-free way to source income.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you increase the value of a property, you are able to refinance and pull cash out. You can take those funds without having to worry about a tax obligation.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, and lastly, but not least, fix and flips.
Yeah. So fix and flips, that's the what I like to call the big sexy ticket in the investment world, right? Everybody's seen shows like Flip This House and Property Brothers and all of that thing. And everybody just wants to be able to be a part of that action. And you can definitely be successful and generate some income for yourself and and wealth for your family by doing fix and flips. The key in this market today is definitely analyzing your deal, making sure that you have a good deal that's going to produce the profits that you need at the end.
Now, it's still the strategy of buying low and selling high. I mean, it's the same concept.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You definitely want to buy right. You definitely want to factor in the amount of renovation that's going to need to go into the property. Mm-hmm. And then you're also going to need to factor in the resale value of that property.
And then as far as seed money, because seed money is always a concern as well.
Sure.
What are you seeing people using to, for the down payments? Where are you seeing the money coming from?
Right now, there are some very niche programs that allow people to leverage assets that they already have. People can use money in the bank, of course, but sometimes they don't always have money in the bank. A lot of times people are able to leverage retirement accounts, investments, cash value, life insurance, even equity in their own home or other properties that they may own.
Like a bridge loan almost, right?
Absolutely.
And then a home equity line of credit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And those are things that we offer as well here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now, assessing deals is a major concern for a lot of people that want to dip their toe into this. They want to assess a deal and make sure it's a right deal. That's not really my space, and that's not your space. How can a consumer, assess, what technology may be out there for them?
Sure, absolutely. So right now, as been said, you can learn anything on YouTube. Right now, you can look and do Google searches or YouTube searches for things like deal analyzers. You will find different investment clubs and websites, such as Bigger Pockets, where you can find deal analyzers, where you can actually just plug and play. You'll plug in numbers, purchase price, renovation cost, monthly payments, after repair values, all of those sorts of things. And it will basically spit out a result for you that will let you know if you have a good deal on your hands or not.
That's awesome. And I think it's so important. And I wanted to preface that because, we just recently had an investor that was looking to buy a property in Mississippi.
Yep.
And, didn't really do the homework up front and consequently, got all the way down to the end and recognized that the average rent in the area was $1,400, but the new mortgage payment was going to be $1,150. And then he's like, hey, for $350, I don't think this is a great idea.
Well, yeah, you definitely want to do the homework up front. You have to take the time to make sure that you're getting into a deal that's going to, be profitable for you at the end.
Right.
And it just really depends on what your goals are and what your tolerance is as well. A $300 profit for some investors is great. Again, if it's something that you're going to be keeping long term, you can take that money, add it back to the mortgage payment and slowly pay it down. But eventually you're going to be paying it down. And at the same time, that asset is going to be appreciating in value. So it's still a win in my eyes.
And still tax deductions as well.
Absolutely.
But if you don't have the right, at least idea of what you want up front, now all the expenditures from, home inspections, appraisals. I mean, it's a lot of wasted money if, all of a sudden the prize is not what you were looking for.
Sure. You definitely need to define those numbers up front. What does a successful deal look like to me? And those are the deals you're going to want to go after. But yes, you do have to do the research up front.
Yeah, I like that deal analyzer. I'll have to check that out.
Absolutely.
So as far as investments go, what are some of the challenges that we're facing right now just in the marketplace and in real estate in general from an investor?
Well, obviously, things like interest rates, right? You have to be able to factor in that your payments are going to be higher than what most people are used to because the rates are just higher.
Sure.
But that's not to say that you still can't find a good deal. You may have to search a little longer, dig a little more meticulously, but you can definitely still find the deals out there. One of the things that's, keeping a lot of people on the sidelines right now are home prices. Inventory is low and prices are up. But again, as long as you're doing the homework, you'll come across the deals.
Sure. And, obviously inventory is going to take a while for it to, recoup, basically. I mean, there was a shortage and a timeline from the pandemic where work wasn't being done. Homes weren't being built. So it does take time for a little bit of a catch up.
Sure.
Now, if we see rates drop, the fear is if rates drop, prices may go up because that means more buyers will be out there. And already we have a good chunk of buyers out there now, and even more would consummate another increase in value. So buying now, like you said, probably makes the most sense.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely going to be a lot less competition right now.
So the best part of this business, since I've been in it for 34 years, I would have to say are the relationships that I have built. 34 years, but 25 as an AE. I have relationships that are 25 years old. So I've seen many people get married, have their children. I know what's going on in their life. They know what's going on in my life. I would have to say that is my favorite thing about being in this business.
How do you believe effective leadership contributes to successful sales outcomes?
So effective leadership. All right. So I've had a lot of leaders over the years. And what I found is those leaders who actually know how to lead, know how to coach, and have their sales guys or gals' best interest at heart, those are the ones that are going to be the most successful as leaders and as teams overall. I found a lot of people are good at the sales job. They're really good at that, but they're not good at growing other people. They're not good at molding their salespeople. And it shows and reflects in their numbers. It shows in their team's performance. It shows in how their teams even operate on the phone. So I've given the feedback often that just because someone is a top producer doesn't mean that they have the ability to teach someone else how to be a top producer. So that's where a lot of training and coaching comes in for leadership as well. You have to teach people how to lead. It doesn't just come naturally to everyone.
That's so true. I mean, obviously, in any industry, the sales environment always seems like the number one sales guy. He's the one that gets offered the branch, the next office that's opening up. But because he's got this great, numbers on a sales perspective, but can he lead people? Can he empower people? So, what are some practical ways maybe a new leader can empower his sales team?
So, coaching. It's all about the coaching. And it's not just about telling people what to do differently. It's about looking at the data, looking at the human. And that's the part that people really miss. So when it comes to being a leader, you have to do some self-reflection. Being able to self-reflect is a big part of leadership. So like I said, I've been in sales and leadership coaching for the last 14 years. And I found that most commonly there are two reasons a once champion underperforms. There's either something going on in their personal lives, distracting them and throwing them off their game, or they've forgotten the fundamentals. If you don't have a leader that can see that, it's going to be really hard for you to self-correct. When we're in sales, we have a lot of tunnel vision. We expect our leaders to be looking at us from a 360 view and seeing the things that we can't. So if a leader is blind to it, let's say they're only focused on numbers, well, then at that point, they're not really a leader. They're a number champion. We need people who are going to look at our business and our personal lives from all aspects to try to figure out where that kink in the system is, and then to help us fix it. I talk to a lot of my sales classes about my favorite basketball player. This is going to throw out a little bit of controversy. It's going to be a little off, but I talk a lot about Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan is my favorite basketball player of all time. Do I have other favorite players? Absolutely, I do. But Tim Duncan is the one that I can relate to most on a personal level and a professional level. We all know his nickname is the Big Fundamental. He's always measured, he's always in control, and he's had an amazing career. Now, do people talk about him like they talk about Michael, Steph, LeBron, Larry? No, not necessarily, because he's a quote unquote boring player. But look at this man's career overall. Look at his stats, right? It's because he always went back to the fundamentals. And as salespeople, that's something that we need to stick with. And when it comes to leadership, there's a trust between that leader being a coach and a salesperson. There has to be a relationship there in order for the salesperson to open up and be vulnerable and take the feedback. And the leader has to get to the root of the issue in order to get any kind of growth or consistency out of the salesperson.
That's great stuff. That's great.
That's the way I see it. Like, leadership is huge, and just everybody has it in them, but they don't know what techniques they need to use to actually grow people.
It's funny because when you were going to tell me your favorite player, I was ready for, Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman. I was trying to go back in time in my Pistons, history, and you bust out San Antonio Spurs.
Nobody ever sees it coming. Nobody ever sees. And I love Grant Hill. Grant, if you're listening, 33. I wore his number all through high school. He's still one of my favorite players in the world. We have the same kind of ankle injuries as well. But Tim Duncan, man, the Big Fundamental, is my guy. He's like his whole aura is like a metaphor for life. Like, I love him.
He wasn't really demonstrative. He was, really subliminal. He kept things internal. So even if he was frustrated, you really didn't know that.
He always looked like a blank slate, and people say that a lot. He's so boring. He always looks like a blank slate. There's no emotion on his face. That's okay. Look at what he's doing on that court. Look at how he leads that team. Look how long of a career he had.
And also too with what you're saying, it from a Chicago perspective, it reminded me of like a Phil Jackson, where he kind of met his players where they were, as individuals, and that's kind of what you're suggesting. Is like, we can't treat everyone the same. We have to kind of say, hey, what's going on in your situation, your life? What challenges are you facing? And kind of move from there. What'd you say?
100%. So but running business development and building training for these multiple lenders across the country over the years. Normally what I go in and do is I find that whatever training they have in place is like a couple PowerPoints and a few Word documents that speak to just one general kind of learner. And if you think about it, you can't really blame them, because that's what we do in school as well. We've got one teacher, we've got 35 kids, and we use this one lesson plan and we just hope it sticks. And more often than not, it's only sticking with a few, but it's because it's sticking with that few that respond to that particular learning style. What I've learned over the years is I should be able to take a group of 35 people. Let's say I've got them in a class for 4 hours. My goal in the first hour is to learn everybody's individual learning styles without them knowing, and then teach to those individual learning styles without anybody knowing the difference. Everybody is a different learner. So that's a big issue, not just in our industry, but in education overall. We're trying to teach people like they can wear a one size fits all t-shirt. And it's not how it is. Everybody's brains operate differently, especially after the age of 25, 26, when those frontal lobes are developed and we no longer learn the way we used to when we were children. We don't absorb like that anymore. Once those frontal lobes are developed, our learning styles are completely different.
Wow. What are some of the common challenges, that sales professionals, are facing right now? I mean, what are some things you've noticed that are kind of unison, doesn't matter the individual?
So right now, I would say a big part of sales, whether it's in our industry is mortgages, but sales overall is it's all oversaturated. That's a big part of the issue. Everyone has the same products. Everyone has the same perks. Everyone has close to the same pricing. I teach my trainees that they are the difference. The human is the difference. I talked about this about a month ago. I recently delivered a TED Talk on being a good human in sales called the Good Human Method. And it's something that I've been using my entire time in this industry. So if you have two salespeople in front of you, let's say they're standing in front of a client or a customer, you've got two salespeople, all things are equal. How do you choose? It's like the left Twix or the right Twix. They're equal. Which one is my favorite, right? So when it comes to us as humans, it's all about who's going to deliver the better service, who's going to take their time with you, who is going to be honest and have integrity. Because if all things are equal, it comes down to the personality that you mesh with the best. When I'm training or coaching, I have a hard, fast rule about being a good human. If you're not going to be a good human, which means being honest, operating inside of integrity, and having your client's best interest in mind, if you can't do that, I'm not the coach for you. More often than not, let's say I have a group of 5 people and I give them that spiel. I have one that walks away because they feel like not that they're not a good human or that they just want to go out there and lie, but they don't want to be held accountable to always playing within this box, which is within the best interest of their clients.
Having good morals,
operating inside of integrity. Having principles, practicing ethics. And I say practice. I use that word purposely because you don't wake up and you're just a good person all the time. You have to practice at it because the world comes at you with some stuff and it tries to knock you off your game. Well, it's the same thing in sales. It's the same thing in our industry. It is a constant practice, kind of like practicing law or practicing being a doctor. It is a growing, breathing thing that we all have to work at constantly.
I mean, it's kind of, especially in the sales environment, it's kind of survival of the fittest. So you do tend to look at yourself more than you look at others. And so that is kind of what you're referencing, is that we have to work at thinking about the other person and what would I do in their shoes, in their situation, and really understanding them. And I think that's a great concept.
Exactly. I have found success in it. And for the last 14 years. And it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. It can be very much an uphill battle. But if you're the type of person that takes pride in your work and you're happy that you got to make somebody else's life better, man, it's the best thing in the world.
Awesome. What would you, what advice would you give individuals that are looking to get into, the sales career? What advice would you say to them, in advance of them starting?
So start playing the role now. We've all heard the phrase, dress for the part you want. It's kind of like that. Start playing the role now. So to be very specific about it, right? First, think about all the good advice you've received over the years. Whether it been from colleagues, leaders, even people outside the industry. It could be your family. It could be some random guy you met at Starbucks. Then think about all the not so great advice you've been given over the years. What advice were you given where it was bad? It failed. That matters too, because you need to go be able to tell people what not to do. Hey, I've already made the mistake for you. Don't do this. Or if you do, try it this way. So we're writing out a list of all of our good advice, writing out a list of all of our bad advice. Now you have to go find a trainee. You have to find someone to practice with. So this could be a client. It could be a customer. It could be a coworker. It could be a mentee. We have a lot of, kids coming straight out of college that want to jump into this industry. We know that you don't need a college degree. You can come out of high school and get into this industry. So find your trainee. And just like planning for a successful phone call when you're going to take a application, you have to lay out a plan of action for this person and a desired outcome. You can't just jump into leadership and coaching. Well, you could, but it won't go well. It won't go well for you. It won't go well for the person you're trying to coach. And then you also have to read about the subject matter. Books matter because this is a craft, right? It is something that is ongoing. You also have to study the psychology of the human mind and how adults learn. Once again, books, reputable podcasts. And then at that point, it's time to build consistent checkpoints. So you're laying out this plan. Now you got to build consistent checkpoints and exercises to make sure that these things that you are teaching are not only being retained, but they're being understood. Training just isn't about teaching someone something. It's not a set it and forget it thing. Training should always be fresh, never frozen. That's one of the things that I use in my career. Make sure training is fresh and never frozen. So like in schools, you walk into, let's say in my hometown, right, a Detroit public school. I'm likely to walk into a classroom and find a book from 1999. That's frozen training, right? But luckily, with the power of the internet, when we have information at our fingertips, training can always be fresh. You just have to go out there and find the reputable sources and find the content and then package it in a way that someone is going to be able to understand. I call it breaking it down. Sure, ridiculous, right? So for our loan officers listening out there, this is taking that monthly payment, the difference in a monthly payment between a 6% rate and a 6.25 and breaking that monthly payment down to the penny so the borrower knows what they're spending, right? I do the same thing with information. We break it down to the ridiculous so that that trainee knows exactly the differences and knows the minute fine points of the theories that they're trying to practice. Consistent checkpoints and exercises. If you don't know how to do all of that, right? It sounds like a lot. If you don't know how to do all of that, that's fine. There's someone like me who you can hire as a consultant to teach you how to do that. I found great success in teaching mortgage brokers how to do this. You go in, you help them build training, you help them coach them as leaders, right? You can do this for 3 months, 6 months to a year, depending on what the needs of the shop are. And once I'm done with them, they know what they're doing. But then we still have consistent checkpoints. I always call, check in, make sure they're doing things, see if they need any advice. But you got to start with one person. And that person could be yourself if you're good at self-accountability. The most important thing, though, when becoming a leader or becoming a coach is that you have to understand that you're signing up for a service that has very, very, very little to do with you. And everything you do is for the person or the people that you're leading and growing. It's servant leadership. It's about them now. If they aren't going to be the priority, don't take the role.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've always envisioned myself as kind of a guidance counselor, a coach. Mm-hmm. I'm there helping the client out, but I'm always thinking about them, not necessarily what's best for me. It's what's best for them, and I think the long game will always pay out at the end.
100%. I bet if you think about it, you've been this way your whole life. I think about it from time to time how this was just such a natural path for me. I very vividly remember in the 3rd grade, I was watching my class and how they were treating my teacher. And I was like, I don't ever want to be a teacher. Well, want to make the universe laugh, right? Tell me what you're going to do.
Right.
But even back to like my basketball days, I was a great player, but I always thought I would make a better coach. The dream was always to go to the WNBA. I'm 5'6", by the way, y'all. I was never going to make it. But, the thought was, okay, I want to go and play, but if I'm going to go to the league, I'm going as a coach because I was a player who could see the floor the way no one else on my team could. And who knew that was going to lead me to building loan officers and broker shops?
I mean, who knows?
So as we wrap this up, tell me some wins. Share some wins. Like what would be viewed as a win for you? Like you come into let's say a broker shop or you're working with an individual. What are you doing and what are the signs of winning, for that individual or that group that you're working with?
Oh man, there are so many. I'm just so very thankful that I've gotten to be in this role for as long as I have. So there's so many on an individual level. So I've had the honor of getting kids right out of college and molding them into some of the sharpest mortgage professionals in this industry, and not just in sales. Some of them found their passion in IT. Some of them found their passion in ops. I've been able to take people coming out of industries like food service, right? I've taken sandwich artists and turned them into some of the highest producing loan officers or account executives in the country. And those are all memorable to me. And a handful of them even went on to become trainers and coaches like myself. And I say that was very inspiring to me, because it's one thing to build salespeople, but to take a salesperson and they go out there and do the things you're telling them to do as a trainer and practice the way you're telling them to do as a coach. And then they turn around and go, I want to do this for somebody else. Right. And they they read the books, they practice the theory. We have the nerdy conversations about adult learning. I have people that I started working with back in 2010, all the way through now, that call me and say, Jess Ford, thank you. Jess Ford, I've never had a trainer like that. Thank you. I have a guy that I talked to a couple months ago. I saw on LinkedIn, he was a trainer for a mortgage company. And I was like, hey man, that's awesome. And he FaceTimed me, which we're not that close. We're not the FaceTime type of friends, but he FaceTimed me and I picked up. And he said, I just want to thank you, because I didn't know where I fit. I knew it was somewhere here, but you showed me that I can do this. You showed me that it was possible to go out and become a coach and become a trainer, as long as I had a passion for it and, had the right motives. So those are what make me happy or even when I'm walking downtown Detroit and I pass a loan officer that, I used to call them my little baby bankers, right? When they were my trainees, and they're in the nice suit and the nice tie. And I think when I met you, you had on a Subway apron and now you're a team leader, like killing it. And I think the most satisfying part is all of these people have been so humble enough, don't get me wrong, as salespeople, we can have some big heads, right? And we love to hear ourselves talk, and we would love to walk out and say we're all self-made. But I haven't had anybody deny me, that feeling of, hey, you helped me. I appreciate you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jess, continued success. I appreciate the conversation. That was great information about being a leader. And just what you're doing and how you're doing it, and molding people and really showing them what their potential is. I think that's, even the guy at the sandwich shop, there was something bigger. There was a bigger calling for him, but he wasn't able to see it, but you were. And
couldn't see it.
Yeah. And you were able to take him and say, no, there's a bigger place for you other than making sandwiches. So that's awesome. If
you don't mind, there's one thing I want to leave you with. So
go ahead.
When it comes to coaching, training, leadership, it's all about the attention to detail and the cadence of the coaching cycles. Each person needs something a little different. And it's our job as coaches and leaders to figure out what it is on that individual level and then build them a multi-level coaching platform to exercise through it. If we can do that as coaches and leaders, we're going to produce some really, really good salespeople, some honest salespeople, but we're also going to build a lot of leaders at the same time.
Awesome. Hey, Jess Ford, have an epic day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared and given to you.